Thanks for checking out this movie review video. So this is for the 2019 film Darlin, and this is what I've been meaning to get to for a while because I became friends with an actress named Christina Arntz through my YouTube channel, and she is in this film. She is one of the women in the encampment. You'll know what I mean. I don't want to explain too much about the film because this is a no spoiler review since it's only from 2019, and a lot of people may not have seen it. And right now it is on Shudder. So finally getting to it because it was available on Shudder. So there you go, Christina, and nice work in the film. In general, I actually thought that the acting was good for this, especially for a lower budget film. Now, I do have to put a disclaimer on this, and that is I have not seen the movie The Woman, which Darlin is kind of a sequel to, apparently, but it can also be watched as a standalone. I did read a small blurb synopsis of what I needed to know about The Woman in order to lead into this, so but it still, didn't ruin the movie The Woman for me, so I will be watching that at some point. And The Woman was written and directed by Lucky McKee, but it was based off a book called The Woman by Jack Ketchum. So just so people know. This film, Darlin, was written and directed by Pollyanna McIntosh, who also did the film December, which I believe was released at the end of 2020. Have not seen that one, but I would like to. Quick synopsis. This is basically about a feral woman and her feral sister, and the feral sister ends up basically falling into the hands of a church who decide that they're basically going to take her in and kind of make her a bit of a project to turn her from this feral human being to something much more civilized that can enter into normal society. So that's as far as I'm going to go with it. It is worth watching. I did enjoy the film. It's not like the best film ever, but it is a good film, and I think that the metaphor at play here is interestingly done too. Time is not wasted getting to the intriguing stuff in this film. They really do hit the ground running, which I really do appreciate in films. So many times they'll kind of like give you something interesting really quick and then they back off of it and it gets like super slow and the pacing sucks. Not this film. They get interesting immediately and they kind of just stay with it. So overall, the pacing is good for this film. Very good pacing for this film, which there are a lot of films out there that have some significant pacing issues, especially when they're lower budget. So good job on that. A character makes non-human noises within this film because of the whole feral aspect of things. And at certain points, you can tell it's kind of like enhanced with like actual animal sounds. There are other moments where it's actual like the actress is just making the noises, and that's good. It does kind of take you out of the film a little bit and seems a little bit ridiculous and over the top when it's kind of mixed with the animal sounds. So I didn't really like that little aspect, but obviously that's a very small thing. You understand very quickly who's going to be painted as good and bad within this film. You do understand very, very fast who the kind of villain is. There is kind of like a main villain. Now, I will say I have one big problem with the main villain, and that's that the main villain has something revealed about them later in the film that I felt like it was too much. It was too over the top, especially in the way that it was revealed. Felt very cliche, felt kind of tired, felt like it was something that the script was leaning on to be like, oh, this person's really bad. But I was already there as an audience member with this character. Like, you don't need to beat it that hard to get there. Kind of beating it to death in a sense. And once again, it's kind of a cliche thing where you're just like, oh, okay. But the character was good and done well as a villain. It's just that one extra thing that got thrown in there. I was like, well, we already get the point, so I don't really understand why we're going down this road now. But it is what it is. There are two things happening in the film at the same time, especially in the very beginning. They do end up reconvening with each other at the very end of the film, but it's kind of like these two parallel stories going on. And you really do wonder when you're going back and forth between them, how are these going to come together in the very end? And how is that going to affect the plot? Like, where are we going here? And I feel like that really does help to kind of drive the mystery of the film in a sense, because like what's going on with the characters isn't really that big of a mystery. Like, it's very much on the sleeve, but there is this kind of where are we going intrigue that kind of gets into the mind of the audience. At least it did for me. There is some solid gore and violence in this, so if you're looking for that type of stuff, it is on display. From what I understand, I think there's a lot more of that in the film The Woman than there is in this one, probably because of budgetary constraints would be my guess, although I don't know for sure. There's some slight humor that gets injected in the film, mainly in the beginning of the film. It actually doesn't make it seem so much humorous. It just makes the film seem a little bit quirky, which I like. Like, I like a quirkiness factor to a film, especially a film like this that it's very interesting. It's kind of like its own concept in a way, even though it does kind of grab from some other things. It comes together as being like its own unique experience. So I really do like kind of like a quirky feel to it. Obviously, being a person who loves things like Twin Peaks and Giallo films, quirkiness, I'm for it. So I like how the humor imparts that in this. One of the characters that takes center stage has some confusing rules kind of built around what they can and cannot do, or what they do and do not know as far as society goes. And it doesn't really seem consistent. You know, when you have a character who is feral, you kind of need to have rules about how feral are they, how well are they able to actually like reintegrate into society and be taught things. So there are moments where you're just like, it seems fine and you're like, okay, this is believable. But there are other moments where you're like, well, for where this character was or how this character was acting, I don't really think this is necessarily believable right now. That they would know how to do this, but not know how to do this, or the opposite. Like, it's, yeah. So there are a few of those moments, but they're not a lot, and they're not too egregious. It's just things that kind of take you out of the film a little bit, unfortunately, in my opinion. That's my opinion. A character's progress gets sped up to a pace that actually does not feel realistic, but it's kind of done because, and you do realize this while you're watching it, because you are taken out of it real quick. You're just like, would this person be progressing this fast? No, it doesn't really seem realistic. But then when you think about it, it's like they kind of have to do that, though. Jeez. They kind of have to do that, though, because otherwise the pacing of the film was really going to suffer. And they don't push it too hard. Like, they don't speed it up too much. It's just enough to kind of make you question it a little bit, but then you realize, well, you know, the pacing would have been killed, basically, if they slowed it down to a really realistic pace. So I'm fine with it. I'm totally good with it. I just needed to call it out, though, because, I don't know, it's something I thought about while watching it. I enjoyed seeing the relationship between two of the younger characters. When it's first established and then when it grows, they have great chemistry, those two particular characters. And yeah, it was a very delightful aspect of the story. And I kind of wish there was more of that relationship development there, because I don't know, I just found it really intriguing and interesting. And if you've seen it, you might know what I mean. You should know what I mean. There is a small twist that I didn't see coming that makes the viewer wonder how this is actually going to change the trajectory of the overall story. It does change the trajectory of the story, and it's interesting because it's definitely one of those things I did not see coming. I'm always happy when there's a nice surprise that I had no inkling about, so I really did like that. And it definitely does stuff to the story that I think is a good thing. I'm a fan. There's something revealed about a kind of villainous character that I feel just goes over the top. I already talked about that, but it does bear repeating. It was too over the top and too cliche, in my opinion. Should have kept the character as they were, because you were already feeling bad about them, not enjoying that character. The ending is decent, but it does kind of feel like there's some stuff missing. I do feel like it needed something else to kind of round things out at the end. It does feel a little bit abrupt. It does feel a little bit unfinished. Yeah, I just feel like there was something else that just needed to happen, or a few other events that needed to happen. I don't know. Maybe other people feel differently, and you can let me know in the comments. Good directing and cinematography. I thought it looked quite good. I was a fan. Overall, good acting, like I said. Nice acting. I dig the musical choices for this, too. The soundtrack is really good. I am a fan of how they chose music. Not just how they paired it up with scenes, but just the music in general sounded good. Like, I would listen to some of that music just at home on my own. So yeah, I really did enjoy how they made those choices. Also, there's a song that plays during the end credits that I believe says a lot and not hinting. The lyrics say a lot about kind of the point of the film, which leads me to talking about that stuff. First of all, a religious establishment is featured within this film, and just because of that, I think there's probably some stuff that I personally missed in it, metaphorically and otherwise. Just because I am not religious, I've never had a religion. I wasn't raised with any religion. I'm 100% agnostic. So whenever there's religion used in a film, it's a lot of it goes over my head. So if anyone wanted to enlighten me about some of that stuff, you can in the comments. There is an aspect of religion trying to civilize people in this film because of the whole feral thing, which has been a thing throughout history. It kind of just made me think to that about how religion for a long time has sought to take people who they view as savages throughout the world and turn them into civilized human beings. Now, that has happened in history, back in the past history, and it still happens to this day. There are missionaries who go out and view other people as, they're not quite civilized. Let's help them out to become more civilized. So there's some commentary on that at play in this film that I thought was pretty effective. I do believe that the main point to this is to make a statement about patriarchy and society and how it basically holds women under thumb. That is my main takeaway from it, and I think that is what is supposed to be at play. But if it isn't, it certainly plays that way, and in an interesting way, too. There are definitely ways that I thought it could have gone in that respect, but they chose to do it in an interesting way. So I appreciated an interesting, unique take with a little bit of quirk, some good acting, some good violence and gore, some good cinematography and directing, and yeah, I think it's a film well worth watching. So I would love to hear what other people think about it, so you can put it down in the comments. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, oh, I'm between 3 and 3.5. I think I'm going to bump it to the 3.5 though, because the uniqueness of the story really grabbed me, and some of the relationships with the characters really grabbed me. So I'm going to do 3.5 stars on it. But like I said, I would love to hear everyone else's opinions. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you in between? Go ahead and put it in the comments. And it is fine to talk spoilers in the comments. Go ahead and do that. Do me a quick favor though, hit subscribe if you haven't already. That is your way to repay me, basically, if you like this video or any video I've ever done. It is quick, painless, and costs you $0, so I appreciate that. And I'm sure you appreciate that it doesn't cost you anything either. So please join this nerdy horror community that I'm trying to create. Also, you can hit that notification bell button, and that way you'll know whenever I'm putting up new videos, whether it's one of these kind of no spoiler review videos, or a very in-depth analysis review video of older films, or an unboxing, or an opinion video, or any of the stuff I put on my channel, basically. But regardless, I thank you for taking your time to watch this, and until next time, keep it brutal.